Welcome to part 3 on this module of delegation. Right now, we're going to talk a little bit more about what is delegation and why we should delegate and when is the appropriate time to delegate. So I gave you a little bit of a history lesson on the word delegation earlier, and now I'm just going to give you a few definitions of what delegation means. According to Wikipedia, delegation is the assignment of any responsibility or authority to another person. The Business Dictionary defines delegation as the granting of authority by one party to another for agreed purposes. And one more definition of authority of delegation comes from Inc.com. They define delegation as the practice of turning over work-related tasks and or authority to employees or subordinates. So I want to ask you, what repeated word do you notice in these definitions? One that stands out to me right away is the word authority. So when I'm thinking about delegation, it means that we are giving the responsibility of a task or some amount of work. We're giving responsibility to another person, and we're giving them the authority to do the work. And that's a big part of the meaning of delegation, is we're giving people authority. Oftentimes you may find yourself in life thinking you're delegating, but actually what you're doing is directing people. You're just saying, do this, now do this, do this, do this. But anytime what they're doing requires some thought or decision-making, they, for whatever reason, come back to you and want your input, want your help, want you to help make the decision for them as to what they should do. If that's happening, then it's more likely that you're directing them and teaching them and coaching them than you are actually delegating to them. And it can mean either that they feel like you still want to have the control over making all these decisions, or it could be that they just don't feel equipped and have enough skills and experience to be able to make the decisions and move forward without asking for your input. Whichever it is, they don't truly have the responsibility and authority to do the task, which means it's not really delegation. So that's one way to know if you're really delegating or not. Do they have full responsibility and full authority to make the decisions, to take all the actions that need to be done to get that work done? So why should we delegate? How does that help? Why is delegation a good thing? I'm going to give you 3 ideas of why we should delegate. The first is delegation should help us to be more efficient as a team, as a ministry. Delegation assumes that there are certain things that make the most sense for certain people to do. And if we can delegate appropriately the right tasks to the right people, we should be more efficient. So delegation allows us to figure out who the appropriate people are to do the work and be efficient. A second reason to delegate is to develop your staff. So again, what's implied with delegation is that it kind of implies that you're developing your staff, that you're teaching them, coaching them, developing them, helping them to learn new skills and gain new confidence and commitment to do new things. And if that's true, well, then you're developing your staff. So why should we delegate? Well, it should be a goal of ours that if we've developed our staff enough, sufficiently, with new skills, new confidence, new commitment, then eventually we should be able to delegate to them. So if we're delegating, we are developing our staff. So staff development is a reason to want to be able to delegate. And a third reason to delegate is staff retention, if we want to retain our staff. And as you can imagine, if our staff constantly do the same activities day after day after day after day, they never do anything new, they never do anything different, there's a good chance that they're going to get bored and go on and move on and do some other line of work, leave our team. However, if we're constantly challenging them, allowing them to develop and grow, learn new skills, and therefore delegate new things, so they get new things delegated to them over time, they are probably going to be a happier, more productive employee or staff member, and more likely to stay on board with us. So staff retention is another reason to delegate. And lastly, for this section, I want to talk about when is it appropriate to delegate. So here are some common reasons why you might want to delegate. Again, we've talked about a few of these already. The first is to grow commitment in others. That's part of the delegation process. If people are skilled enough, have the confidence, and are committed enough, we know we can delegate. So if we see people are really getting committed and excited, or we want to do that, if we want to grow their commitment and excitement, we need to empower them with new tasks, which is the next reason when to delegate. If we want to empower people, we want to give them opportunities to learn and grow, then we should be delegating. If we want to encourage others in their abilities and their potential, then we should be working towards the point where we can delegate to them, right? If we personally want to transition out of our role, whatever our role is, then we need to be developing others to the point when we can delegate the things we do to them. So working towards some sort of transition is a reason to delegate. Another reason when to delegate is to reduce your workload. So oftentimes we find that we just have too much to do, and we need to figure out what can we hand off to somebody else. So delegation makes sense if we want to reduce our workload. And lastly, sometimes we just are doing things that we shouldn't be doing. We have responsibilities, we have work that we're doing that we're just not the ideal person to do. We're not the best person to be doing it, but for whatever reason, we keep doing it. Sometimes it's because there's nobody else on the team that knows how to do it, whether it's how to use some particular type of equipment, right, or software or application or whatever. For some reason, we're doing it because nobody else can. All right, well, that's a reason why we want to develop other people so that we can delegate to them, so we can offload things that we're really not the best person to be doing it anyway. So those are some common reasons to think about as to when it may be appropriate to delegate.